So last time we were actually in the middle of the Mishnah. We didn't get too far last time. As Hashem, we're going to try to cover a little bit more ground today. So we're in the middle of Mishnah Bays, Parak Bays, the second Parak of Brachas, the second Mishnah. All right, so Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha, that's what we're holding over here. So again, we're talking about the last halacha that we learned was the idea of Kriya Shema and the brachas of Kriya Shema being divided into different parts, and the halachas of making a hefsek between the paragraphs or in the middle of a paragraph, and differences between Rabbi Yehuda and Rameir we saw. So now the Mishnah goes on. Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha, says Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha, Lama kat mishma levahayim shemaya. So that's Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha, why is the order of Shema the way we have it, that you have Shema v'yahavta, and then v'hayim shemaya, and then v'yayim. In other words, in the order of Chumash, it's not like that. The order of Chumash is that Vayomer, the last parsha of Tzitzis, that's the first to be said. That's earlier. That's the end of which parsha is it? The end of Parsha Shlach. So that's the first thing to be mentioned. And Shema and Vayim Shemaya, that's in Sefer Dvar. So we're going out of order anyway. So what's the shot in this order? So it says Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha, Ela Kadesh Yekava all of all Malchus Shemayim Tchila. So the order of Shema is telling us something. It's not just reading psukim, it's expressing amunah, it's expressing our acceptance of Yiddishkeit. So first you have to accept the general idea of Elikus, the Rebbeinu Shalom is one, and our devotion to Him, Malchus Shemayim. Then you can get into the details of, and because I believe in God, and my life is devoted to Him, so Memela I can then go and devote myself to keeping His mitzvahs. And so Shema v'yahavta is a general idea of loving God and devoting your life to Him. And then Vayim Shemaya is about the specific mitzvahs. Fine. It's like Mishna Vayter, Vayim Shemaya Vayomer. So then why is Vayomer at the end? What's the transition there? So it says the Mishnah, Shavayim Shemaya, Nai Vayomu B'layla, but Vayomer ain't Nai Gal Vayomer. The answer is that even though it's interesting, the real reason why we lane Vayomer at the very end is really for Yitzias Mitzrayim. No, but since that and Yitzias Mitzrayim is relevant to Kriya Shema, you believe in God, you dedicate your life to Him, you're going to keep His mitzvahs, and the Rabbanu Shalom, and Yitzias Mitzrayim means the Rabbanu Shalom put you in this world, and He set you free, and He sent you on this mission to become an Eved Hashem. So it sort of sums up what sort of defining our role in the world. That's Yitzias Mitzrayim. But at the end of the day, the specific paragraph of Yitzias Mitzrayim that we mentioned is part of a larger discussion of tzitzis. And tzitzis is only by day, not at night. And so Memela, V'hayim Shemaya is more general of mitzvahs b'chlal, which is day and night. Vayomer is only day. So Vayomer, that's more general, is first. And then V'hayim Shemaya, which is more general, is first. Then Vayomer, because it's only naik, it's only relevant by the day. Okay, next Mishnah Gimel. Hakar Shema, let's say a person reads Shema, and he doesn't hear what he's saying. So he's mouthing the words, but he's not making any sound for him to be able to hear himself. So it says, so are you yotze with that? In other words, you're reading it, but you're not hearing it. So it says the Tanakama yotze, you're yotze, you don't have to hear it. Rabbi Yossi says, lo yotze, you're not yotze, you have to hear it. Now, the way it's explained is that it's actually very negel halacha, not only for this particular case. The question is, what does it mean, Shema Yisrael? What's taich? What's the taich Shema Yisrael? So probably most of us would assume that taich is Shema Yisrael, hear, O Israel, right? Well, if the words are Shema Yisrael, hear, then no, that means that you have to hear what you're saying. And so that's the reason for Rabbi Yossi that says, well, if you don't hear what you're saying, it means you're not yotze. So the Tanakama disagrees. The Tanakama says, no, even if you don't hear it, you're yotzing. It says Shema. It says Shema. So the answer is, according to the Tanakama, the word Shema does not mean to hear physically. Shema means to understand, to absorb. That's what Shema means. Absorb the message of Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. And by the way, this is relevant to someone that's reading Kriya Shema in English. The halach is, maybe we'll see this soon, the halach is that technically speaking, if you could read Hebrew, then the best way to say Kriya Shema is in Hebrew. But if you can't read Hebrew, then you can fulfill the mitzvah of Kriya Shema by reading it in English. But if you're reading it in English or any other language, then you have to make sure that you're translating it properly. So what's the translation of the word Shema? What's the translation of the word Shema? I don't know how they translate it in the art scroll, but the real, and I think Rav Soloveitchik used to say this, that it would depend on this machlekes. If you hold, according to the Tanakama, that says that your yaitse, even if you don't hear it, it means the word Shema doesn't mean hear. Shema means absorb, understand, deher, in Yiddish. Whereas Rabbi Yossi that says, no, you have to hear it, you're not yaitse, because he teaches the word Shema means to listen. So if you're reading it in English, should you read the word hear, O Israel, or should you read the word absorb, understand, O Israel? And so we paskin. How do we paskin? So we paskin like the Tanakama, that even if you didn't hear the words, you're still yaitse, because the word Shema does not mean to hear. Shema means in that pasuk, it means to understand, to absorb. And so that Rav Soloveitchik used to say that's in fact how it should be taiched if a person is reading Shema in English. It shouldn't be hear, O Israel. It should be absorb, understand, contemplate something, some word that conveys, sort of attaching yourself to the concept, the idea, not the physical hearing. Anyways, that's so that's maybe an issue with some translations, but that's how I think it was Rav Soloveitchik. That's he used to say it. Anyway, so then the Mishnah goes on. Let's say you are reading, and the only issue is maybe you could hear yourself, so that's fine, but you're not being medactic, you're not being careful with the words. So some words, you're not pronouncing them 100%, or it's well known that some words in Hebrew, like they can sort of meld with each other, like b'chol levavcha, right? So b'chol ends with a lamed, levavcha starts with a lamed, so they can sort of become, you could say it as one word, b'chol levavcha. So that's why in the siddur you'll have like lines, b'chol, stop, levavcha, to make sure that you're articulating properly. So let's say you don't articulate properly. So says the Mishnah also machlekes. Rabbi Yossi Omer Yatsa. Rabbi Yossi says you're yaitse. Rabbi Yehuda Omer lo Yatsa. Rabbi Yehuda says you're not yaitse. Every word has to be said properly. Halach l'maisa, we pass him like Rabbi Yossi that you're yaitse even if you don't read the words properly 100%. Although lechatchila, certainly a person should read the words properly, not to the degree where a person is like got OCD about it, because you could have people like that too, that they make themselves crazy. Again, it goes back to the previous question, which is what does the word Shema mean? Like, what's the point of reading these paragraphs? Again, the way we paskin, Shema means understand, absorb. So it's less about the physical words that you're saying. It's more about the message of accepting upon yourself the yoke of heaven. So a person could get completely lost in the details of the words to the exclusion of the entire message. And so that's not the point. That's not the point. The point is Kabbalah Salmal Shemayim. So a person should be careful to read the words properly, but not to the degree that you lose focus over the entire purpose of what Kriyishma is. Akarla Mafreya. Then says the Mishnah, let's say you read the paragraphs of Shema out of order. So you're supposed to say, it's supposed to be Shema, Yahavta, Shemaya, Vayomer. Let's say you reverse the order. So lo yatsa, that you're not yaitse. Because again, so if you think, again, why not? Again, if the idea is just saying words, then I said the words. Okay, so this paragraph I read first, this paragraph I read second. I said the words. The answer is it's not about the words. It's about the concept that you're trying to absorb. And that concept is a process that starts from Shema, which is the general idea, moving to V'hayim Shemaya, which is more, okay, now that I believe in a God, now I'm dedicating my life to keep his commands. And then you go to Vayomer, which is, and the Rabbanan Shalom designated me as an Eved Hashem in this world by taking me out of Mitzrayim. So all these ideas that I just enumerated are not just nice things that I'm going to accept. That's my identity. That's who I am. So there's a concept that's being developed over Kriya Shema. And so if you read it out of order, you're not getting the concept. You're getting the words, but you're not getting the idea of what Kriya Shema is about. And it's all about the idea. You have to say the words properly as much as you can. And the way we connect to the idea is by saying the words. But the idea is the point. That's what Kriya Shema is about. That's why, again, in the Gemara, the mitzvah of Kriya Shema is always called the mitzvah of Kabbalah Malchus Shemayim, the mitzvah of accepting the yoke of heaven upon yourself. It's not just called the mitzvah of reading words, because the words that you're saying are trying to bring upon yourself a certain consciousness, a certain way of thinking about your life and about what Yiddishkeit's about. Okay, next Mishnah, Mishnah Dalet. Mishnah talks about a scenario where a person is, let's say, a worker. So he's being paid by the hour. He's being paid by the hour. and happens to be while he's working, it's the time of reading Kriya Shema. Now it's no big deal. Fine, so he reads Kriya Shema. But says the Mishnah, let's say he finds himself. Let's say he's he's a builder, whatever it is, and he's literally on top of a tree. He's like standing on top of a tree, or on top of like a roof or something that he's working in, like a construction work or something. So the question is as follows: for him to have proper kavanah, and we just got finished saying the whole idea of Kriya Shema is what is the concept. So that demands a certain level of kavanah. Now, him standing on top of a tree, making sure that he doesn't fall, that's not the exact place of having the greatest kavanah in the world. So the question is, should he take the time to get down to the ground in order to say Kriya Shema properly with kavanah? Or, on the other hand, by doing that, it's going to take off some time off the clock of his work. He's being paid by the hour, paid by the minute. So how do we go about it? So says the Mishnah, if a person is a paid worker, so if he finds himself during the times of Kriya Shema and he has no choice, he's on top of the tree or on top of a roof or something, and even though it takes away from his kavanah, that's where he has to read Kriya Shema. You can't be machmer on bein adam l'makam, right? And therefore be mekel on bein adam l'chaver. It doesn't work like that. Part of having the yoke of heaven upon you is to be an honest Jew, an honest worker. An honest worker means he's not going to take any time off just even to go down from the tree. Ma'ashein Rishon last came to tefillah. Now tefillah is something different. Tefillah, it's impossible to daven Shemona. The level of kavanah that's required for Shemona Esrei is an impossibility if you're standing on a tree. So then we'll allow you to go down. But for Kriya Shema, since it might not be the greatest kavanah in the world, but enough kavanah for Kriya Shema you could have on a tree. So we'll allow you to do that. That's the technical halacha. The truth is, the Rishonim already point this out, that nowadays we assume that an employee that's hiring you, even if it's for the hour, understands that there's going to be a few minutes here and there that you have to take off, you have to take care of your stuff. So if he's not makbid on you to go to the bathroom, he's not makbid on you to, take a few minutes, beyond the lunch break, and he's not getting, you're not marking down literally second by second. So we'll assume that he's not going to be makbid on you to go down from the tree to read Kriya Shema as well. But you do see a certain, it's a Musar Hasna, I guess you can say. You see from this, so very often, the Chida used to say this. The Chida said that during the times of like El Rashana, so people take upon themselves chumras. So the Chida used to say that he said he always observed, it was interesting to him that whenever people think of chumras, they're always ben adam l'makam, Chalv Yisrael, Pas Yisrael, whatever. But rarely do people think of taking upon themselves chumras ben adam l'chavera. But the truth is, it's just as chashuv. Let's put it that way. Just as chashuv as ben adam l'makam. But the truth is, in this mission, we see it's even more chashuv. Right? It's even more chashuv. We'll sacrifice some kavanah for Kriya Shema for the purposes of being honest. Okay, Mishna Hey. Mishnah goes on to talk about another scenario where a person is in a funny predicament when it comes to Kriya Shema. Chasan pater mekriya Shema b'layla harishan ad matzai Shabbos im lo yasa ma'isa. Says the Mishnah, we know that there's a concept of again, like we said, that there's an idea of a person that's involved with a mitzvah. There's a concept of Isaac mitzvah, pater mitzvah. If I'm physically involved in a mitzvah, then I'm pater from doing other mitzvahs. So if I'm in the middle of davening a mashal, it's a mitzvah, Shemona Esrei, and someone comes by collecting for tzedakah, so I'm pater at that moment. I'm Isaac mitzvah. I'm pater min mitzvah. And not only that, but the halacha is that even if a person is torah b'tir to the mitzvah, let's say a person's not actually doing a mitzvah, but they're completely, their mind is completely fixated on that mitzvah. They can't concentrate on anything else. Then they're also pater from other mitzvahs. Even if you're not doing the mitzvah, but your mind is completely wrapped up in the mitzvah, that'll also pater you from other mitzvahs as well. So that's the case over here. A chasan, the first night of the chasana until Matzai Shabbos, we know the Daf Yomi is the beginning of Ksubis already. So the Mishnah talks about the beginning of Ksubis, that the minhag in those days was to get married on Wednesday nights. So from the first night of the chasana until Matzai Shabbos, by Matzah Shabbos, we'll assume that the marriage was consummated. So between that first night of Chassan and Matzah Shabbos, if it wasn't consummated yet, so we assume the Chassan is mavobel, he's thinking about his responsibilities as a husband, which is a mitzvah. And because of that, he won't have enough kavana to say Kriya Shema. So he's parted from Kriya Shema during that time period. Once the wedding is consummated, then he's not movable anymore, and he could read Kriya Shema properly. And that's the halach of the Mishnah. Now nowadays we assume we don't do that. Even a chassan in the first night still has to have a ma'ariv and say Kriya Shema. The reason is because we don't hold ourselves to have such kavanah by Kriya Shema anyway. So we're just So whatever level of kavanah we're used to, you can muster up that first night as well. But that's technically the halacha, that the way Kriya Shema was supposed to be said. It would take a deep level of concentration, and a chassan during those first few nights until the wedding is consummated, he's not going to have the concentration to do it properly, and therefore he's pater. Says the Mishnah, Ma'aser Rav Gamliel. There's a Ma'aser with Rav Gamliel, Shekara B'layla Harishan Shenasa. He got married, and the first night of the wedding, he said Kriya Shema, and he davened ma'ariv with all the Talmidim. It's interesting, by the way, that even, again, I don't know how old Rav Gamliel was at the time when he first got married, because again, this is not a second marriage, this is a first marriage where the chassan's mind will be distracted, and he already has Talmidim. So again, you see Rav Gamliel at an early age. So Amar Talmidim, so the Talmidim asked him, didn't you teach us that a chassan is pater from Kriya Shema the first night? So Amar Lahem, so Rav Gamliel responded, it's an interesting language, Eini Shemei Lechem. I refuse to listen to you. Levatli many malchus shemayim. That I refuse to listen to you, that I should take away from myself, accepting upon myself the yoke of heaven even for one time. In other words, what Rav Gamliel is saying to them is that technically you're right, but I can't imagine going through a night without saying Kriya Shema. Like for me, I can't imagine such a thing, to not accept upon myself the yoke of heaven. So I'm not going to be able to follow that halacha. So he's going to be extra machar on himself and to say Kriya Shema. Okay. The next Mishnah, Mishnah Vav. The next couple Mishnahs talk about other situations where Rav Gamliel did something which was a little bit against the norm in halacha. So the Mishnah goes on. Rachatz b'layla harishan shemeisa ishtai. The situation was Nebuch, his wife passed away, and the halach is the first night that's heavy avelus, aninus and heavy avelus. So and the halach is one of the things that an avel is not allowed to do is to take a bath, take a shower, to have rechitza. Certainly not when a person is in eining, right? We know the halach is if a close relative passes away, so before the burial, you're in a state of aninus. Eining means that you're absolutely focused completely on the situation, on the tragedy that took place, and even after the burial, the first day of Avelus is Midrash. It's a very strong Avelus, and so that first night, Rabbi Gamliel still did a rechitza. He took a shower. So I'm like Talmidim. So the Talmidim asked him, didn't you teach us that an Avel is not allowed to shower? So so he said, I'm not like everyone else. Istinistani. I'm an istinist. What's an istinist? I'm a phonik, someone that. In other words, what Rabbi Gamliel is saying is that the halacha of an avel not taking a shower is not because showering is a problem. The issue is hana, pleasure, doing something that's for the purposes of just enjoying yourself. That's something that an avel is not, it's inappropriate for an avel to do. But when I'm showering, says Rabbi Gamliel, it's because if I don't, I feel it hurts me, it bothers me. So I'm doing this to. It's as if it's as if there's if my hands are dirty. I can wash my hands, because I'm just trying to get off dirt. I feel dirty like that. So that's an istinus, that's a different halacha. And an istinus would be allowed to take a shower even the first night of Avelus. That's the halacha. Shouldn't come up, but that's halacha. Mishna Zayin. Ukishemes Tavi Avdai, another situation, when Tavi was his Eved Kanani, when he died, Kibol Tanchumen, Rabbi Gamliel accepted Neshama, and other people came to give to Menachem Avel, Rabbi Gamliel, over the death of his servant. So his Talmidim asked them, Rabbi, you didn't teach us, you don't accept Hamakim, you don't receive Nechama over the death of your Eved. First of all, there's two things. First of all, he's not related to you. It's number one. So we have such a thing of receiving Nechama over someone that died that's not your relative. And number two, not only is he not your relative, he's also an Eved Kanani. An Eved Kanani is a funny situation. It's like somewhat Jewish, somewhat not. If you have a guy, in other words, it's a non-Jew that became somehow a Jewish, a slave of a Jew, and went through some quasi process of conversion. Like the halach is, it's sugis and kedushin, where the eved, in order for him to be classified as a real eved Kanani, he's not Jewish, but he has a bris milah, and he goes to the mikveh, and so he goes through the process of gerus, but it's not a full gerus to the point of where he's 100% a Jew. It's this quasi level of where he's obligated in the mitzvahs like a woman, but not fully like a man. Once he's freed, then the gerus will like solidify and kick in 100%, and now he's a full-fledged Jew. But while he's an eved, he's sort of in between. So not only is he not related to you, but he's also not fully Jewish. So what's going on over here? So why are you accepting Nechama? So Amar Lehem, so he said, Ein Tevi Avdi Kishar Avadim. My servant Tavi was not like a regular eved. Kosher, he was a good Jew. He was a Yerushalayim. He was a God-fearing Jew. He wasn't just, going through the motions. He was an Erel Chiyid. In other words, what Rav Gamliel was responding is two things. First of all, the fundamental point that he's saying is that to receive Nechama, if you feel bitzar over this loss, then there's a mitzvah for people to comfort you. The mitzvah of comforting an avel is just a subcategory of the Ahavas L'Reacha Kamocha. There's a mitzvah to love another Jew and to help him out in a time of need. So we assume that relatives are going to be tzibrochen over loss. So in Mela, we are menachim them. But if you have a person that's not the relative, but he's also tzibrochen, so you comfort him too. There's no reason not. So the fact that he's not related to me, it's irrelevant. I feel the loss because he was such an Erel Chayid and he was my servant. I mamish feel the pain of his loss, so I need Nechama. He wasn't 100% of a Jew, but still, he was a God-fearing Jew. He was so in chashiv, and because of his chashivas, he's worthy of being remembered, of being mourned over, and I feel that mourning and that loss. And memela, I could be, I need that Nechama as well. And so that's that's the way to think of all these mitzvahs that we think of, like Nichama Velim and Bikur Cholim, and all the things that we do. Those are all derivatives of part of the general mitzvah of the Hazarach Kamecha. So happens to be, you have to do it for a novel. But the point is that why? Because the Yid feels a bracha and we want to be mechayim. So that's what you do. And if someone else feels bad about a particular situation and you comfort him, that's also a mitzvah. It's also the Hazarach Kamecha. One last Mishnah, and then we'll end. So it's a little bit over time, but it says in the Mishnah, Chasan, going back to that halacha of a Chasan being pater the first night of the Chasana, or the first few nights, assuming the wedding wasn't consummated. So Chasan, imratzel likris kriyishma layla harishan. Let's say he wants to be machim, like Rav Gamliel was, right? Rav Gamliel said about himself, I'm going to read kriyishma no matter what. So let's say an average Jew, now that Rav Gamliel wants to do that. So if a Chasan wants to read kriyishma that first night, Kaireh, says the Mishnah, he has the right to do so, even if he's not Rav Gamliel. Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, it's interesting, Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, Rav Gamliel's son, says, no, my father was special. You can't just take that name like you're a Rav Gamliel Dikiyit. It doesn't work like that. My father, I knew my father, he was someone special. He was someone that is deserving of saying about himself that he can't go one night without Kriyishma. The average Jew, that's already not necessarily a level that every Jew can take. But like I said, halach l'maisa, we hold that everyone should read Kriya Shema, even a Chasan, not so much because we hold ourselves to be like Rav Gamliel, but sort of the opposite, because we hold ourselves that we don't have such kavan anyway. So that's how. But what's interesting is that because of our Yeridas l'maisa, we have the same hanag as Rav Gamliel. So that's sometimes the way it goes, It's like let's put down this farm that sometimes, the tzaddik reaches the Rabbanu Shalom by going all the way up, and sometimes the Rasha reaches the Rabbanu Shalom by going all the way down and hitting rock bottom and discovering the purpose of life when you get all the way to the bottom. So it's a similar situation over here, because of our lack of kavanah l'maisa, we can say that we do the same hanaga as the great Rav Gamliel. Him because he's so high, and us because we're so low. But at the end of the day, it gets us to the same place. It's like dafka what the 3 weeks are about, It's brought down in this farm that there are 3 weeks of avelis, of sadness. It's going all the way down. And then you have the 3 weeks of Rosh Hashanah till Sukkot, which is all the way up. L'maisa, both ways, either you find the Rebbeinu Shalom by going all the way up, or you find the Rebbeinu Shalom by going all the way down. Either way, it's a yontif, it's a connection to Rebbeinu Shalom. So should be zeichet to have a good connection to Hashem, no matter what the situation is, up or down or anything in between. Best should preferably be up. Everyone should have an up day, a good day.